Ben McKee, West Record, Go Vols 24/7 here inside the friendly confines of, we're not technically in Rupp Arena, we're in Central Bank Center, almost like a convention center of sorts that is connected to Rupp. Lexington right behind us. Hi, people of Lexington. We just got done saying hi to Mick Cronin, Rick Barnes, Tennessee, and UCLA players ahead of tomorrow's round of 32 matchup with a trip to the Sweet 16 on the line. I was in the locker room speaking to players. You got to listen to Rick Barnes and Mick Cronin speak this afternoon. Rick, of course, was asked about that time he flirted with taking the UCLA job. What stood out to you from Rick's comments overall, but specifically that topic?
Yeah, well, I mean, Mick Cronin won the battle of the press conferences. I can tell you that much. Barnes's was good. Cronin's was epic. But you know, this is a game where you cannot hide the fact that there's a backstory here in some ways. Like especially for the Tennessee side, it's like you for some people want to forget that it happened, but you know, Rick Barnes, to his credit, remains as consistent as the day is long. His answer never changes on this topic. He said, listen, 6 years ago, UCLA called me. He said, that's one of the best programs in the sport. That's a place that I grew up idolizing because of John Wooden. And when the place that where John Wooden worked calls you, you pick up the phone. And he said, I listened. He said, but he prayed about it and he thought about it. And at the end of the day, he made the decision to stay at Tennessee, and he's glad that he did. He said he was blessed that he kind of got some divine intervention there, kind of helping him make the decision he did, but that, you know, he's happy that he stayed at Tennessee. And he said Mick Cronin's probably happy that Rick Barnes stayed at Tennessee because, you know, Mick Cronin's at UCLA and doing all right. So it worked out for everybody, but, you know, it could be a thorny issue, but I've always appreciated Barnes' just complete candor about it, and I think that helps a little bit.
You have the floor to describe how epic the Mick Cronin press conference was. Of course, we'll have stories up at the site at some point today, and we'll have the full transcript up on the site as well. But as best as you could describe what you took away from Mick Cronin's press conference, how would you?
All over the place. It was Derek Dooley level good as a press conference. It was, you know, he thanked Wisconsin for just kicking their tail and giving them a couple days off extra instead of doing more in the Big Ten tournament. He talked about how, you know, he doesn't normally have to worry about whether his guys will play as hard as the other team now, because that was an issue earlier, but now he feels like he's got those guys where he wants them. But then you turn on the film for Tennessee and you think, I don't think my guys play as hard as these guys. And he told his guys, like, listen, you have to play as hard as these guys or you can't beat them. He said if you do play as hard as them and you give yourself a chance and then you can make some shots maybe and then you have a chance, but if you don't, you have no chance. He talked about how he loved Jemai Meshack out of high school and that he wanted to offer him, but that they only had one scholarship in that class and that it had already been taken up. So they couldn't take Meshack. He said he was happy when Meshack went to Tennessee because he said that's a program that fits him. He may not be thrilled about it now for the time being, but he's been happy for him in his career. And he just talked about how, you know, it's the way that UCLA has had to travel all season long. This is not an uncomfortable thing for them now, being on the road in a true road game, even though he's trying to recruit Kentucky fans to the UCLA cause temporarily, maybe some blue blood privilege there coming up. He's like, I know y'all don't like Tennessee, so maybe come out. And he's like trying to give out tickets to fans that he sees around town, and that and more. He just went on for forever, and it was a great press conference. And if the game is as good as those pressers, it could be fun.
Yeah, I know the game is going to be good. Well, I should say I know that the game is going to be a defensive slugfest because these are two of the top 15 defenses in the country. For Tennessee defensively, UCLA, they want to get touches in the paint and truly work inside out. I mean, they very much want to accomplish the same thing that Tennessee wants to offensively. I think Tennessee is more willing to take perimeter shots than UCLA is. UCLA doesn't shoot a lot of perimeter shots, but when it does, it shoots them at a pretty high clip. We saw that last night against Utah State. So for Tennessee defensively, the big man, 7'3", the big fella, Tennessee's going to have to do a good job there. He does have pretty good footwork, but I'm curious to see how Felix Okpara's and Cade Phillips' athleticism irritates him. I think that could really benefit Tennessee. And then on the flip side, offensively for Tennessee, UCLA is phenomenal at turning teams over. And you feel good if you're Tennessee because you have Zakai Zeigler, but you better make sure you're not turning the basketball over tomorrow. I think those are the two keys on both sides of the basketball for Tennessee.
Yeah, we know that's a bugaboo for Tennessee, right? We
Has been
know,
at times.
A bugaboo as in when they're losing games.
Yes.
That's often a big part of it. And yesterday they had 3 in the first 4 or 5 minutes and then 3 the rest of the game. So they a little loose with the ball as they are early at times in games, and then they settled in and we're good. But UCLA is going to make it hard for you. They are a team. Their roster construction is interesting. They're not a big team except for the one guy who's gigantic. They got the 7'3" Spanish guy, and then they've got, that's actually his name, 7'3" Spanish guy. That's his name, L Spanish guy. But
He's no Marc Gasol.
No, but he is that tall. But other than that, their biggest guy's like 6'8". They're not a big, maybe 169 guy. They're not a big team, but
they're muscular.
But they are what
their guards have some size.
They are what you would call a thick team. They're a strong team. They'll get under you and they'll cause you problems. And for Zakai Ziegler, you're like, hey, if low man wins, I'm feeling pretty good if I'm Zakai Ziegler. But they are a very, very blue collar team. They're not what you think of a lot of times when you think of LA teams and spotlight and all that. But Kobe Bryant may be the hardest working professional basketball player who's ever lived. Spent quite a bit of time in LA, rest his soul. So there's some of that over there. Like they've got a blue collar sort of lunch pail quality to them, and they are gonna have to. Mick Cronin talked about playing Tennessee is hard because they make everything hard. They're cutting, they're screening, the way they fight through screens. He said it's a physical battle, and they will absolutely wear most people down because they make it hard to do everything that you want to do. So it's going to be two teams trying to make each other uncomfortable and succeeding at times, and it's just whichever team succeeds more is going to win the game.
Yeah, UCLA is not your typical 7 seed, I think is the summary that I would give in just looking at them statistically, watching them from afar this season. Been a little bit inconsistent at times. Their offense has been inconsistent at times. UCLA's offense is what some Tennessee fans think Tennessee's offense is. So there's a little more firepower with Tennessee, but they're not your average 7 seed. And they have a lot of talent because of UCLA. So Tennessee's going to have to make sure they show up for tomorrow night's 9:40 p.m. Eastern tip time on True TV and TNT, ready to play, or else their season will come to an abrupt end. So we've got plenty of coverage leading into tomorrow night's game between Tennessee and UCLA, with a 3rd straight trip to the Sweet 16 on the line for Tennessee. And it is the Sweet 16 in the meantime, in the short term, but your program's first Final Four is also on the line in these games. So a lot to play for tomorrow night. Tennessee, I assure you, will be ready to play. It's just a matter of will they execute, and we'll have plenty of coverage leading up and throughout the game tomorrow night. As long as we can stay up, I'm going to go drink another cup of coffee right after this to make sure we're good to go. He'll go drink another energy drink.
Whatever it takes, man. This body, whatever it takes to get it moving.
I think IVs are going to need to be hooked up.
Let's
energy
take it.
drinks.
Let's take it. Let's whatever.
Coffee.
Yeah, we'll get try to get a massage other than the day so the muscles are feeling good.
A nap.
Listen, all hands on deck.
Yes.
All hands on deck. Although making Rick Barnes coach at midnight is elder abuse. It just is. I'm telling you, it should be against the law. I think federally it might be against the law. You can't work after midnight at that age. You just can't.
I'll let you look into that. He's Wes Rucker. I'm Ben McKee.